morning, warriors. This is by far the most important video I've ever done. Now, here's the disclaimer. Most of you are not going to make it all the way through this. Here's why. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to share with you why most people won't make it through and why 1% of the population owns 97% of the wealth and why there's only a few uncommon 1%. Hear me out. So if I was to give you a Bible or a tabloid magazine, which one would you read? If I was to give you the Jersey Shore, a reality show, or the Kardashians, or the story of Jesus, which one would you read? If I was to give you an economic breakdown or maybe a financial statement or maybe TikTok, which one would you read? We all know the answer. So now what lies in that answer is that the people, the powers to be, know that's how we operate. They know whoever controls the attention, whoever controls the money, controls you. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So I challenge you to make it all the way through the end of this video, to not skip around. See all these tabs up here? I'm going to break it down from the early 1600s all the way to where we're at today. So I'm not going to sell you some pie in the sky narrative. I'm going to share you exactly what's happening with human behavior. This is all my opinion. I'm not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. I'm just documenting my journey to build generational wealth for my family and help the warriors create freedom. My name is Coach JV. I am the top health and mindset coach in the world. What you believe in your heart, you think in your mind, will eventually become your words and become your reality. Ways you can connect with me: I have the Coach JV podcast, one of the top motivation podcasts, TikTok, YouTube here. You got Instagram. So let's go ahead and get started. You came here to learn. So I challenge you, if you made it all the way through, I want you to put the code word at the end. Don't fast forward to the end. I will do a code word at the end, and you put it in the comments that you made it all the way through, and you are a warrior in a modern day society. Okay, so let's get the boring stuff started. So this is what you need to know, warriors. If you know the game, you can't be played. Okay, if you know the game, you can't be played. So when it comes to finances and monetary or money, people lose sight of their intentions. It's just a fact. It's human behavior. There's nothing to worry about, warriors. This is what humans do. Humans get greedy. They get addicted to money. They get addicted to things, wealth, power, and people get hurt. But if you know what's going on, you can play the game. If you want to consider it a game, I don't consider this a game. I consider this very serious business. And so what you do is you bring the wealth back to your family and you support people. Make affordable housing, be able to bring food to those who can't help themselves. There's a lot of stuff great that you can do with money. So I plan on creating generational wealth so I can support my warriors and create freedom for them. So let's start in the early American currency. So like I said, only warriors going to make it through that. So the early American currency went through several stages of development during the colonial and post-revolutionary history in the United States. John Hull was authorized by the Massachusetts legislation to make the earliest coinage of the country. The willow, the oak, and the pine and the tree shilling in 1652. Now there has not been a new asset class since 1600. So I'm going to, all the way at the end, I'm going to share with you what the new asset class is. Since there were few coins minted in the 13 colonies that later became the United States, foreign coins like Spanish dollar were widely circulated. Colonial governments at the times issued paper money to facilitate economic activities. Think about what's happening right now. Listen to what's happening right now. Issued paper money, monopoly money, to facilitate economic activities. The British Parliament passed currency acts in 1751, 1764, and 1773 that regulated colonial paper money. During the American Revolution, the colonies became independent states, no longer subjected to the arbitrary imposed monetary regulations by British Parliament. The state began to issue paper money to pay for military expenses. The Continental Congress also issued paper money during the Revolution, known as continental currency, in order to fund the war efforts. Everything revolves around war, monetary. Both states and continental currency depreciated rapidly. What's happening right now? Let me read that again. Okay. So both states and continental currency depreciated rapidly, becoming, in effect, worthless by the end of the war. What is happening to your US dollar? So follow this all the way through. I'm going to break that down for you. This depreciated was caused by the government stemming from the printing of large amounts of currency. What's happening right now? You got your stimulus check coming, baby. Printing, printing, printing. In their efforts to meet the monetary demands of the war. Additionally, British counterfeit gangs contributed further to the decrease in value. By its conclusion, think about the gangs, the behind-the-scenes people. By its conclusion, only a few counterfeiters had been caught and primitively hanged, for the crime. The war devastated the colony's economy, especially when compared to the economic status of King George. Okay. So now let's move fast forward. So now we know that this has been happening for a long time. Governments have overspent. So now we're going to go into 1913 and the Federal Reserve Act. Okay, what is the Federal Reserve Act and what is your Federal Reserve? So who is making your monetary policy, who is controlling interest rates, and who is the one that's printing all this money? So we're going to give you an overview from Investopia.
The 1913 Federal Reserve Act was a pivotal congressional act that helped establish the Federal Reserve System as it exists today. It is one of the United States financial system's most influential laws. In the years prior to 1913, financial panics occurred in the United States with regularity. The Panic of 1907, during which the New York Stock Exchange fell almost 50% from its 1906 high, saw many banks and companies go bankrupt. The country needed a currency reform that could provide a degree of financial stability. Signed into law by President Woodrow Wilson, the 1913 Federal Reserve Act created the Federal Reserve System, also called the Fed. The Fed is the central bank of the United States. The Fed manages the nation's monetary policy through manipulations of the nation's money supply and interest rates.
Manipulation of the money supply and interest rates.
The Fed also established the 12 regional Federal Reserve Banks. Each can print money to ensure economic stability. While the system has slightly changed in response to events like the Great Depression of the 1930s, today it still serves the purpose for which it was intended. The Fed uses policy to weather the volatility that comes with normal business and economic cycles.
Okay, so the Fed was enacted to protect central banks. It was supposed to protect and create monetary policy, right? So there couldn't be these frequent crashes, which I'll break down in just a moment. Okay, so now let's go a little bit further, deeper into the Federal Reserve. In the Federal Reserve Cartel, the 8 families that own the USA, BIS, IMF, and World Bank, okay? So let's break down who really owns the Federal Reserve, who controls our economy. So they're Goldman Sachs, Rockefellers, Lehman's and Kuhn of New York, the Rothschilds, Paris, and London. So the Rothschilds of Paris and London. The Walbergs of Hamburg, the Lazars of Paris, and the Israel Moses Selfis of Rome. Many of the bank stockholders reside in Europe. What have I been showing you guys? The EU, the European Union, Christine Lagarde, the Paris Agreement, the Great Reset, which I'm going to show you at the end here. The U.S. government had a historical distribution of BIS lobbying unsuccessfully for its demise in the 1944 post-World War II Bretton Woods Conference, which I'm going to go into. So Bretton Woods became boon to the 8 families. The IMF and World Bank were central to this new world order, right? So there's people that have conspiracy or whatever that say that, you know, they started the Federal Reserve, right? It's the richest people that control the economy. Just know that, okay? Just know that. Okay, so now the Federal Reserve, let's go a little bit deeper. So let's jump over to the Great Crash, the Great Depression in 1929. So there was 4 phases of the Great Depression. Now remember, in 1907, the government was printing currency into infinity. There had to be a change. So by 1913, they came up with the Federal Reserve to protect central banks to stop these frequent crashes. Okay, so number 1, the government easy money policies cause an artificial economic boom and substantial crash. Easy money, printing. President Herbert Hoover's interventionist policies after the crash suppressed the self-adjusting aspects of the market, thus pretending the recovery and prolonged recession. So let me repeat this. So President Herbert Hoover's interventionist policies after the crash suppressed the self-adjusting aspect of the market, thus preventing recovery and prolonged recession. So we're in the worst economic collapse right now. After Herbert Hoover left office, Franklin Roosevelt New Deal expanded Hoover's interventionist into the nearly every aspect of American economy, thus depending on the Depression and extended it even longer. Labor laws such as the Wage Earner Act struck the final blow to the remaining the healthy sectors of the economy, dragging the last remaining bulwarks of productivity to their knees. Each of these phases are marked as distinct events, and each had their own specific causes. Together, they produced one economy result: business stagnation, where are we at right now? Unemployment, where are we at right now? Worst of all time. On a scale never seen before in the United States until 2020, where we're at right now, 100 years later. Let's examine each phase. So I broke this down in another video. So we got 1907, okay? We got the early 1600s, they were printing money to infinity. We got 1913, so 1907 was, 1913 was the Federal Reserve enacted. We know who owns the Federal Reserve. They're the richest people in the world, all over the world, and I'm going to break this down in the future too. Okay. Then we had the economic collapse of 1929, the Black Tuesday. Okay, so let's talk about the creation of the Bretton Woods system. So in July 1944, a new international monetary system was forged by delegates from 44 nations in the Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, in July 1944. Delegates to the conference agreed to establish the International Monetary Fund that became the World Bank Group. Okay, the system of currency convertibility that emerged from the Bretton Woods lasted until 1971. The United States Monetary and Financial Conference was held in 1944 in the Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, where delegates from 44 nations created a new international monetary system known as the Bretton Woods system. The Bretton Woods system was attaching the gold to the dollar, right? They were attaching gold to the dollar, so it was creating stability for your currency. Right now, you're seeing gold go up. When gold goes up, there's a lack of trust in your government. Okay, so let's move a little bit further. So what was the Bretton Woods Agreement system? The Bretton Woods Agreement system was negotiated in July 1944 by delegates from 44 countries and the United Nations Monetary Financial Conference held in Bretton Woods. Okay, the Bretton Woods Agreement system explained. Approximately 730 delegates represented 44 countries met in Bretton Woods, July 1944, with a principal goal of creating an efficient foreign exchange system, preventing competitive devaluation of currencies, and promoting international economic growth. The Bretton Woods Agreement and the systems were central to these goals. The Bretton Woods Agreement also created two important organizations: the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, the World Bank. You see me all the time talking about the IMF. While the Bretton Woods system was dissolved in the 1970s, both the IMF and World Bank have remained strong pillars for the exchange and currency. So let's go a little bit further. So you hear me showing videos from the IMF all the time, right? International Monetary Fund. So now the IMF is going to be, I believe, what controls our economy in the future. So let's figure out why that happened, okay? Nixon ended convertibility of US dollars to gold and announced wage price controls. In August 1971, with inflation on the rise and gold run looming, they're afraid they're going to do a run on gold, President Nixon's team enacted a plan that ended dollar convertibility to gold and implemented a wage price control, which soon brought the end of the Bretton Woods system. They detached from the Bretton Woods system, okay? President Nixon's action in 1971 to end the dollar convertibility to gold implemented wage price controls were intended to address the international dilemma of looming gold run and domestic problem of inflation. The new economic policy marked the beginning and the end of the Bretton Woods International Monetary System and temporarily halted inflation. The international monetary system after World War II was dubbed the Bretton Woods system, after the meeting of 44 countries in Bretton Woods. So we talked about that. So now here we are. Let's break this down. So in 1913, the Federal Reserve was enacted. The richest people in the world create the Federal Reserve to protect central banks. Okay, now remember who's part of this family. Let's go back really quickly. So we go back. These are the wealthiest families in the world from all over the world. You got Goldman Sachs, Rockefellers, you got the Lazare of Paris, you got Rome, you got the Europe. Most of them are stockholders in Europe, okay? So now here we are. Nixon detaches us from the gold standard, detaches us from the Bretton Woods standard. So now what happens is we can just print money into infinity, and we become fully a debt-based society, okay? A debt-based society. So in order to increase the economy, you have to have more debt in the economy. So let's break down really quickly some of the crashes since 1907. So 1600, so we talked about the 1600s, this has been going on. So we haven't had a new asset class since the 1600s. So let's go into 1907, where are we at here? Okay, so we had the panic of 1901, 1907, lasting over a year. Markets took fright after the U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt had threatened to rein in the monopolies that flourished in the various industrial sectors. Okay, so we had a crash from 1907 up into 1929. We had a massive, so that's when the massive crash started in 1929. So they had the Roaring Twenties, right? And that 1929 created the Great Depression. Okay, so that was massive. So the recession of 1937 to 1938 preceded the 1929 crash. So we went from crash to recession. So let's fast forward. Then we had Black Monday in 1987, the infamous stock market crash that represented greatest 1 day percentage decline. Stock market history, accumulating in a bear market after more than 20% plunge. So that was 1987, which was Black Monday. Okay. Then we had in 1990, after a crash, we invaded Iraq. Okay, so we know war stimulates the economy, right? So 1987, Black Monday, 1990, we invaded Iraq. So let's fast forward to the collapse of the technology bubble. So in periods of decline, afterwards there's periods of peace and prosperity. So people were booming in the 90s with the dot-com boom. People made so much money. And then here comes the big crash. So the collapse of the tech bubble destroyed, it literally crashed. So many people lost money. And then here comes September 11th attacks. And then we go into a whole nother realm, right? Then we go into 2008, on September 16, 2008, failures of large financial institutions in the United States due to primarily to exposed securities of packages, subprime loans. We all know the housing crisis. To make it simple, the housing crisis was a disaster. To share with you guys, that never got fixed. That never got fixed. Our interest rates have stayed at historical low interest rates. Okay? Well, inflation is going up, historical low interest rates. People aren't making more money. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? It never got fixed. So they kept printing, lowering interest rates, trying to push credit into the market. And now here we are. In 2020, the stock market crashed. Now, most of you are looking this way at the C word. I'm not going to say the word here because it'll shut my YouTube channel down. You're looking at why is that, right? So you say the pandemic, you're looking over this way. Did you know on February 20th, the C word outbreak caused supply disruptions leading to the fastest U.S. stock market plunge from recorded highs into corrections, okay? A record drop was seen and the Dow Jones dropped more than 10% in a single week. Stock markets around the world fell simultaneously amid the turmoil. Unemployment also reached highs, bringing comparison to 1929, the Great Depression. So this is worse than the Great Depression right now. So now we know early monetary system, that the governments back in the 1600s were just printing to infinity, deflated the economy. Now we're doing the exact same thing. So let's see what's happened since then. Okay, so 1913, when was the Federal Reserve created? In 1913. So this was the value of your dollar. This is 2018, 96% loss. And don't quote me on this. I think we're now at 97% loss. So that means what your dollar was able to buy in 1913 compared to what it's able to buy now is much, much less. So if your dollar's deflating, okay, your wages aren't going up, you're going to lose your job within the next, 88 million people are going to lose their job within the next 12 months. The service industry is going to get crushed. What's next? So you have a credit crisis. You have a deflating dollar. You have inflation now, which I'm going to break down in just a moment. So what can happen right now? Let me break this down in just a moment, okay? So here we go. So if you take a look at this right now, so I want to show you guys something that's pretty interesting. This will give you the aspect. Okay, so now we talked about in the 1600s they printed into infinity, right, to collapse the economy. So now here's where we're at right now. So this is GDP, gross domestic product. I teach this in the Warrior Academy. GDP is all the products and services and goods in America, and I'm proud of you, by the way, if you're still here. All the gross domestic products in the world in America, if we sold those, could we pay off our debt? Right now, America's at 106% debt-to-income ratio, and it's projected that it could hit 154%. That is not good, Warriors. So check this out. What did the pandemic do to our GDP? So this is January going into, looks like February, in between January and July, -5%. We went -31% as they reported in, would that be second quarter? But all of a sudden it shot up going into third quarter. Now, why did it shoot up? They're going to tell you that GDP is on the rise. We're great. Well, the U.S. economy expanded by an annual 31.1% in Q3 2020, beating forecast of 31% surge. It is the biggest expansion ever, following a record 31% plunge. Isn't that interesting? We plunged 31% and we shot up 33%. As the economy rebounds from the C word, personal spending surged and was the main driver of the growth. Helped by checks, weekly unemployment benefits, and the Federal's Care Act, growth also reflected increase in private inventory investment, exports, non-residential fixed investments, and residential fixed investments that were partially offset by decreases in the federal government spending, reflected let's go into this. So the PPP loans. PPP loans. People were making more money on unemployment than they made in their current jobs. But here's the problem, warriors. Here's the problem, is that is going to dry up. You can't just keep printing money. The retail industry is going to get crushed. The service industry is going to get crushed. You can't just keep doing this, warriors. We are in a very, very tough position. So when you're in a tough position, what does Jerome Powell do? So listen to this, guys. I'm going to break this down. I'm going to try to start it here, and I'm going to go a little bit further in here so I can break this down for you guys.
Support of committee participants. Our new consensus statement, like its predecessor, explains how we interpret the mandate Congress has given us and describes the broad framework that we believe will best promote our maximum employment and price stability goals. Before addressing the key changes in our statement, let me highlight some areas of continuity. We continue to believe that specifying a numerical goal for employment is unwise because the maximum level of employment is not directly measurable and changes over time, reasons unrelated to monetary policy. The significant shifts in estimates of the actual rate of unemployment over the past decade reinforce this point. In addition, we have not changed our view that a longer-run inflation rate of 2% is most consistent with our mandate to promote both maximum employment and price stability. Finally, we continue to believe that monetary policy must be forward-looking, taking into account the expectations of households and businesses and the lags in monetary policy's effect on the economy. Thus, our policy actions continue to depend on the economic outlook as well as the risks to the outlook, including potential risks to the financial system that could of our goals. The key innovations in our new consensus statement reflect the changes in the economy I described. Our new statement explicitly acknowledges the challenge posed by the proximity of interest rates to the effective lower bound. By reducing our scope to support the economy by cutting interest rates, the lower bound increases downward risks to employment and inflation. To counter these risks.
Okay, so what that means is we're a credit-based economy, right? That's the only way we can survive. We are based off interest. So what they're doing is they're lowering interest. We need credit in the market, right? Because they need people to borrow, because borrowing creates jobs. When you get a credit card, you go out and spend. You go into happy hour. You go get shoes. When the interest rates are low, you buy houses. That's the way they're stimulating the economy.
We are prepared to use our full range of tools to support the economy. With regard to the employment side of our mandate, our revised statement emphasizes that maximum employment is a broad-based and inclusive goal. This change reflects our appreciation for the benefits of a strong labor market, particularly for many in low and moderate income communities. In addition, our revised statement says that our policy decision will be informed by our assessments of the shortfalls of employment from its maximum level, rather than by deviations from its maximum level, as in our previous statement. This change may appear subtle, but it reflects our view that a robust job market can be sustained without causing an outbreak of inflation. In earlier decades, when the Phillips curve was steeper, inflation tended to rise noticeably in response to a strengthening labor market. It was sometimes appropriate for that to tighten monetary policy as employment rose toward its estimated maximum level in order to stave off an unwelcome rise in inflation. The change to shortfalls clarifies that going forward, Employment can run at or above time estimates of its maximum level without causing concern, unless accompanied by signs of unwanted increases in inflation or the emergence of other risks that could impede the attainment of our goals. Of course, when employment is below its maximum level, as is so clearly the case now, we will actively seek to minimize that shortfall by using our tools to support economic growth and job creation.
So during this announcement, Jerome Powell had shared with us that we're moving to a flexible inflation rate, okay, a flexible inflation rate. Now, what does that mean? That means that they can at least hit 2% within a reasonable amount of time. So what you're seeing now is we're in a credit crisis. They're lowering interest rates. People aren't going to be able to pay their debts, so they're trying to stimulate the economy. You're getting PPP bailout money. You're getting unemployment. They're just printing, deflating. The monetary system is going to crash. A new asset class is on its way. And as all this is happening, you're looking this way, warriors. You're going to be left behind. So let's share with you guys. Let me show you guys where this came from right here. Okay, let's go back real quick. Okay, so this is from the World Economic Forum. Okay, so we've watched this video many times, but I want you to think of where we're at right now. Okay, this is called the Great Reset. This has been planned for a long time, warriors. This isn't just because of the pandemic. Watch the video closely. So did you see some key factors in there? Monetary, the printing machine just printing money, that just went by really quickly, warriors. Okay, so now where are we at? Where are we heading to? We're heading to a new monetary system, warriors. The new fourth industrial revolution, a new asset class. So I want to share with you guys, this is 2018. Morgan Stanley report says crypto, now a new institutional asset class. So when people start not trusting their government, they move into gold, silver, assets. But where we're at right now, warriors, is a pivotal time in history. That's why they call it the Great Reset. That's why people, billionaires, are saying this is the biggest shift in generational wealth happening right now. We're moving from industrial, which is all the stuff you saw back here, to technical. Now, one thing I want to share with you guys is don't think the richest people in the world aren't making this transition. They've already done it behind the scenes, warriors. And you have the opportunity. You have the opportunity right now to be the new uncommon 1%. So you can bring money back to the people. Think about that, warriors. A new asset class. J.P. Morgan, one of the richest people, one of the richest families in the world, their CEO, Jamie Dimon, in 2017 said cryptocurrency is a fraud. And by 2020, he now banks one of the top cryptocurrency platforms in the world, Coinbase. They also opened up their own blockchain to invite other cryptocurrencies to run off their blockchain. The CEO of PayPal said that cryptocurrency is a fraud in 2019, just a year ago. And now you can go to your PayPal account and buy Bitcoin. George Soros is invested in Bitcoin. Billionaires are investing their assets in Bitcoin. Companies are moving their assets to Bitcoin. You are experiencing a brand new asset class, not one since the 1600s. People are fed up. Well, the system is fed up with the printing, and they can't print anymore. We can't keep running like this. The Great Reset is here. History in the making, warriors. So if you made it this far, comment below, I am a warrior. I am a warrior. Now I'm going to share with you how I can help you, warriors. So my mission is to help as many people see the power they have inside and accomplish great things. All of you guys have access to this information. I've been researching this stuff for over 9 years now. And I used to talk about this and people would call me crazy, but now you're seeing the switch. You're seeing institutional people move into cryptocurrencies. So I have what's called a Warrior Academy. It's been private for a long time, but last Monday we opened it up to the general public for a minimal amount. You can click the link down below, but I want to show you what we offer in our Warrior Academy. So we offer a 6-week Wake Up Warrior. We work out with you live on a daily basis. We have your nutrition plan, mindset coaching, and you go through an 18-week program. Now, the most popular part is I'm not a financial advisor. None of it's financial advice. But all this information I'm sharing with you guys, I show you how to reprogram your mind around subconscious mind around money, the money mindset, breaking it down to specific goals, creating a vision, understanding economics, the stuff we're talking about right now. And then I actually show you what I'm doing to invest in the quantum financial system. It's not financial advice. I literally show you exactly what I'm doing, how I buy my crypto, why I buy my crypto, what companies I'm buying them from, and I use the Warren Buffett model. I look at the leadership team, I look at the real world solve, and I follow his exact model on how to invest in cryptocurrencies. So guys, we are at a pivotal time in history right now. And as Dan Pena says, he says, what are you going to tell your grandkids 20 years from now when you had the opportunity to be part of the biggest shift in generational wealth? What are you going to tell your grandkids what you did? Most people are going to say nothing, because as you're looking this way, there's a whole narrative happening this way. And if you made it this far, you're a warrior. If you want to get to know and like and trust us, click down below, join our global free Facebook group. We go live every single day. But if you're ready, right now's the time, warriors. It is November 2020, and the biggest shift in generational wealth is happening right now in history. So you are a true warrior if you made it this far. Make sure you comment below, I am a warrior. Warriors, rise!